Hello, and welcome to the third video in the series of Redditor Teaching Programming. This is Programming Lesson 3. So in my first video, I wrote a very simple C program. In my second video, I showed you how to turn that C program into a Java program. In this video, I'm going to show you how to run that Java program in Windows on a system that is not based on a terminal from 1970. So again, sort of with our history lesson of where this programming comes from. In the year 1999, there was something created called BlueJ, and jump forward from that about 10 or 15 years, and when I was in high school, that was what I first used when I first learned programming. So I'm going to use that as an example today. Probably by far not the greatest or best editor for Java in the world at this time, in this time of day, but I think it's good from a simplicity standpoint, again, to sort of see the learning process here, things you can do. So I downloaded this for Windows. I've got this zip here of BlueJ, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a new project, and then we're going to run our program from Lesson 2 in BlueJ. So I'm just going to extract this here. That'll probably be pretty quick. While it's running, I want to talk a little again about, so we had our programming lesson 2 folder that we ran in previously. Now, one option, if you're on your computer and you want that code, you want to get it out, you want to get it into Windows outside of the terminal or whatever kind of computer you're on. Maybe you were doing this on a Mac and you want to get it out of your Mac terminal. There's a program called cat, which is sort of a silly name, but basically cat will print out onto the screen the contents of a particular file. It's kind of like concatenate, I think maybe is where it comes from. So, it's concatenating to the screen. So if I do that, you can see here it prints out all of the contents of our nice little program. And you could select it, and then a lot of times there will be some kind of menu for copy paste in here. I'm going to do a little bit of wizardry here. I'm just going to do serve programming lesson 2. I got a special little utility I made called /serve programming lesson 2, and what that'll let us do is just go to efeller.com. This will probably work on your computer also if you wanted to. Programming lesson 2, test.java, and then we'll see our code right there. So that's the sort of convenient way to get it out of there, right? I made it. I was working on this Linux server, as I mentioned previously. So by doing /serve. I have offered myself now a way that I can just go efeller.com, programming lesson 2, test.java, and give myself the file right here. I'll leave this up so, a year from now, if you watch this video, you'll probably still be able to download this if for some reason you didn't do lessons 1 or 2. But I think my extracting BlueJ is probably done now. So let's go ahead and do that, and we should have this code copied. Let's see here, downloads. I got a lot of junk in my downloads folder. It's a little unfortunate. I gotta get folders on the top. There we go. And we'll go in BlueJ and we'll try running our program from a slightly more modern environment. Cool. I'm just gonna say no thanks to participating in their data analytics. So when we go here to the scanner and the test class that we created in video 2, we should be able to dump that right into video 3. So let's make a new project here. This is going to be a Java-based project. BlueJ is just like a Java editor. It wants to put it in users Eric. I think I'm going to put it in users Eric documents. Maybe like a Java. Is there a folder called Java projects? Oh yeah. Okay. I'm going to make a folder called projects inside Java. So I'm going to this Java projects folder. I'm going to make a project called Programming Lesson 3. Cool, and I'm going to click OK on that. And then it should load up. Yeah, there we go. So BlueJ is one of these editors that just lets you basically click a button and it'll make a Java class. Now we already have some code called test, so I'm going to make a new Java class called test. And I double-clicked it, I opened it up. They give us the code here, but we saw it in our previous video, so I'm just going to paste that right in. Now what we should be able to do is compile that, and you can right click it and do void main string args, and it runs and says please enter your name. You'll notice this is exactly the program we wrote in 1995 world. But now we're in 1999, so I think they probably had just made Windows XP or something, I don't know. And if I put in here Redera, it'll say, hello Redera, that our program still works as we wrote it to work. Now it's working in a Java editor that has really fancy stuff going on. So in general, that's sort of how we get to an editor here, so we can do even more advanced stuff. But I think the next step for us is probably that we want to try making a slightly more fun or interactive program. So with that in mind, I was thinking maybe what we could do is make something that has a sense of a game where you go from place to place. So let's try making something called a place. And this is sort of going to describe and help me show you how Java really works and why they have this idea of classes. So you can see already, BlueJ, which tries to diagram your work for you, creates this little picture called place that represents place. Now they have a bunch of sample code. You probably don't really need that. And what we're going to do is basically the idea of these classes in Java. As you saw with test, you can use it sort of like a C program with public static void main. You can make a function that's independent of the class system, really. But the way the class system is intended to be used, and the reason static is this magic word that normally isn't used, is the idea that you can create multiple of something. And this is what I think BlueJ is going to help us to illustrate here. So let's say I have a concept of a place. It's a place where I can go in the little simple game that we're about to write. We saw before that Java can use a string to represent a name of something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give string name to the place. So that's saying, because it's inside the curly braces of the place class, it's saying that the place has a name. That if I make 3 different places, they'll each have a name. Java also has a concept of how you create something. So we saw before, if I made like, let's see, let's make a function called print in place. I'm sort of inventing as I go here, so I'm taking a second to think about what I'm doing. Actually, here's a better idea. Let's name our function enter place. Actually, just enter. Sometimes, see, in programming, one of the hardest things is naming, because you want to name things something that makes sense to you when you come back a year later, even if you forget what you were thinking when you wrote it. So the idea of entering a place, what I'm thinking is we're going to use that same system.out.print like we did before. But we're going to tell the person that they have entered the place. So we're going to say you have entered plus the name of that place, plus then one of those new line characters. Those are still useful in the wonderful world today. Although actually, I'm going to show you a little trick here. Typing those new line characters is pretty annoying. So at some point they decided, why not have a separate function, println, that handles that for you. So in the modern world, you can just use system.out.println, as they call it. And it'll do that for you. So enter will tell us that we've entered the place. But you might be wondering, how do I say that every place needs to have a define it? Because here I've given it a name as variable. But what if that name isn't specified? What is a place with an unspecified name? Well, let's create a rule that when I make a new place, it always needs to have its name specified. Now, in order to do that, if I do public place, like this to start off my method, you'll notice that it doesn't have a type because the type and the name are one and the same. It's just place. When I do that, I'm defining what it means to create a new place. We saw that before with scanner when I said new scanner, and it wasn't any function, right? It wasn't something like scanner.create, which would be a very different paradigm. I used new scanner. That new keyword like that is called the constructor in Java, and that's the concept that's happening here with place. So I'm defining what it will be to make a new place. And similar to when I created that scanner, and I gave it system.in as what to scan from, the input of the system, with place, I can say, well, every place must be given a string name. That will be the name of the place. But you might realize the name given to the place isn't necessarily the name variable that I created that is the name of that place, unless I assign one to be the same. So it takes a moment for me to describe this, I guess, but basically this .name refers to the name of the place, the name stored within what a place is. And if I say equals name, I'm assigning to it the place that is passed to the variable, passed to the constructor, right? The special constructor function when I say new place. What that means is that in test, I can create a place. I can say place, my place. Let's call it Redera's room. That's what place it is. It's Redera's room. And we're going to call it Redera's room equals new place. So notice that I use the type of variable again. I give it name to the variable. And then I use new to create a new one. When I do that, after we greet the person and say hello, we can then say Redera's room dot enter. And it will call our enter function that we have written on that place. Now you notice, because place is now being used by test, BlueJ tries to flowchart them for you so that you can tell what is using what with a nice little arrow. However, it still works just the same that if I run void main on test, it says, hello, please enter your name. And maybe I'm the cool dude. It says, hello, cool dude, you have entered Redera's room. Now this is where it gets a little interesting when we talk about what is a Java class. So BlueJ gives us this sort of unique ability that you can just right click on the definition of a place class and make a new place. Say, well, this place here, this is Redera's friend's place. It's a really good place. Oh, apparently they don't like apostrophes. They think it's a character literal. That's silly. All right, we're just going to use raw words. We're going to call it Redera's friend's place. Oh, they want quotes around it. Okay, Redera's friend's place. That makes sense. It's a string. They want the quotes around it. Okay, it's Redera's friend's place. So now I've created a place down here, and I can double click it, and it shows the name is Redera's friend's place. And I can right click it to interact, and I can do enter. And if you look over here, it actually prints out you have entered Redera's friend's place. But here's the fun part. I can make another new place, and this is going to be called YouTube. That's a crazy place. I don't know if you want to go there, but I made a crazy place called YouTube. Oh, you know the other thing you can do actually. I wasn't setting the name of the variable, so you can see that was called place2. There's two different names. There's the name that we coded into place, and there's the name that BlueJ is using for that place. It's a little bit redundant, isn't it? That's sort of silly. But anyway, so place2, we know that if I double click place2, the name of the place is YouTube. And if I right click place2 and use enter, it'll print over here, you've entered YouTube. So the idea of a Java class, right, is that I can enter Redera's friend's place and I can enter YouTube, these two different places, even though I only have one definition of the place class. It's trying to go towards that idea of reusability, to have all these classes. And with that, you can use that in your code. So we saw in test how I created Redera's room as a new place. We could have two of those. We could have a second place called awesome place, and that's just going to be the awesome place, and that's a place you can go. The awesome place. With that, you could also have maybe something like conditional. So we could say let's say that if they enter Redera as their name, then we'll put them in Redera's room, and otherwise we'll put them in the awesome place. To do that, you can say if username, and this is from the program from video 2, the username they entered. So in Java, when you want to compare strings, they always use dot equals. It's a little bit silly, but it's true to the paradigm of the methods being inside of the classes, being inside of the objects. So similar to dot enter, dot equals is a method on a string, but it returns a true or false value if they have the same text. So what we can do is we can check if username dot equals the text Redera, and if it does, then we can do Redera's room dot enter, and we can say otherwise we're going to enter the awesome place. Redera's room dot enter. Else awesome place dot enter. Cool. So now if I recompile this, you'll notice our sort of dashboard of places where we created YouTube gets reset when you recompile in BlueJ, which is a little silly, but that's just how it works. So now if I enter my name, if I'm cool dude, it'll say you have entered Awesome Place. But let's run the program again. I'll hit void main over here, I'll pass it nothing. And if I say Redera, it'll say you have entered Redera's room. So with that, we have created two different places, one called Awesome Place and one called Redera's room. And you enter one if it's Redera who's being greeted, and you enter the Awesome Place if it's not Redera. Not to say that Redera's room isn't awesome. So to that end, I hope you've enjoyed this video today, and I hope you've learned something new and again had fun as I gave an example of how to move your Java program from the world of 1995 to the world of 1999 in the program BlueJ, where you can create Java classes just by right-clicking and right-click to interact with them. And I hope you have a good day.